Hi there, and thank you for joining us on the Overcomers Overcoming podcast. We feature those who are in the process of overcoming or have overcome any type of life encounter, life obstacle that at the time seemed to be almost insurmountable. With this podcast, we have three objectives in mind. Our first objective is we want you to know with a confident resolve you are not alone. We want to work with you. We want you to know there are others who are working with you, who want to help you through whatever you are encountering, and together we will get through whatever you're experiencing.
Our second objective is there are multiple options for any life encounter you are facing. We want to help you develop a resolve that there are various options and solutions to any life dilemma.
Our third objective is to help you with critical thinking skills. If you're encountering something that was possibly a decision you made sometime in the past, and if you had the opportunity for a life redo, you would make a different decision. We want to help you with those critical thinking skills that can help you make an informed decision and not encounter what you're going through at the moment. We are the Cooper Culture, a veteran-owned business. We work with business personnel and families to develop and sustain connected relationship cultures within their families and organizations. That type organization is one where people feel wanted, appreciated, and genuinely a part of that organization. I'm with my wife and business partner, Marty, who has helped me facilitate this podcast. Today we feature Iryna Ishchenko, who discusses with us how she worked with her mother from almost halfway across the world as her mother was experiencing aging and specifically dementia. Iryna lived in California and her mother lived in Ukraine. It was a matter of her conversing with and accepting the life changes her mother was having and how she could support her mother being the distance away she was. It's a situation that many of us go through as our parents age. They go through different life changes. Marty, what are some takeaways our listeners can gain from Iryna?
Her story is one of heartache because her mother was her best friend. Not only seeing your best friend, but your mother go through the life change and to the point where these patients forget who you are. And so that was hard for her. So she dealt with that in the best way she could. She had a 1-year-old that she was dealing with too. She gives us a good example of how to do this and move on saying goodbye to your best friend and your mom.
It's a great life lesson. Let's listen and learn together. Iryna, it is good to have you with us. I want our listeners to know you are Ukrainian, and you are with us today to discuss with our listeners the experience you had in being your mom's caregiver, who also had terminal cancer while solo parenting a newborn baby. You had your personal struggles and how you overcame that. Iryna, it is really good to have you with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you, Ron and Marty.
Can you explain to our listeners somewhat of a top level what it is you went through, how you felt with your mom's cancer and so forth, and we'll just see where that goes from here.
Okay, so I will invite you back to, which was 2006, I think. At the time when I was relatively freshly married, I just had a baby. And that was a very loved and expected baby. And my mom, who was my best friend, and she was the greatest mom, but we also had a wonderful relationship, personal relationship with her. She came over from Ukraine to be with me and support me and help me at the time when I'm having a baby. At that moment, like, my life was pretty much perfect. I had a lovely marriage, I had a lovely child, I had my support, and everything was fine. Until one day, when my son was 8 weeks old, my mom fell down and I could see that the bones, like her leg was crooked, like the bones shifted. And when I am taking her to the emergency room and they do all the tests and x-rays and everything, and they found that this bone broke because of the metastasis that ate a hole in the femur. And that was the metastasis that came back from the cancer that she got for the first time when I was a newborn baby. So that was the moment when everything like fall apart, and I have a baby on my hands. I have my mom who didn't speak English, and I had to take care of her in the hospital. And I told myself, okay, I can handle it. I do it one step at a time. A little bit forward, we move my mom back to Ukraine where she lived at that time because she could get the treatment that she needed for her cancer there, but we could afford it for her to have here versus to have it in the United States when the person doesn't have the local insurance. For 3 years, I would come and visit her. In the beginning, she was doing okay. She would go through the treatment. She would get better. She even came to visit us back in the United States once, I think, once or twice. But then it turned to the situation when she couldn't get up. It was hurting more and more. She didn't want to tell me about that. She went back to Ukraine because she had like these time slots between her treatments. And he was telling me on the phone, I am okay, but I could hear that her voice is kind of strained, like she was not okay. And I started calling her friends back in Ukraine, whom I knew, just like, can you go and check on my mom? What I found that she was in such a pain that she would find a position on the bed when she would like less painful, and she wouldn't move. She wouldn't get any food, like she couldn't take care of herself. So I grabbed my baby, who was about 1 year old at that time, and flew there. For the next 2 years, it was me who had to take care of her. And she couldn't get up anymore. She was bedridden. She was still receiving the treatment, but that treatment was very harsh and it affected her brain. So her brain started deteriorating, and it was a very sharp cognitive decline. You can call it like dementia as a medical induced dementia or a result of the medical treatment versus senile dementia or dementia as a result of more commonly known causes like Alzheimer, frontotemporal, vascular, and so on. So she was in bed. She was changing. I pretty much stopped recognizing her because she was recognizably, it was my mom, but her personality changed so dramatically that I didn't know who that person was. And on the top of that, she became very manipulative. She became very like self-centered, as like, I don't care about anyone else, like what's important for me, and what happens to other people doesn't matter. I cannot blame her because I cannot imagine what kind of pain she was enduring. And on the top of everything, because my son was born in the United States, he's a United States citizen, which at that time, 17 years ago, at that time, he, with the visa regulation and diplomatic relationship between the country, he could stay in Ukraine for 3 months, then he had to exit and re-enter to get a new entry stamp, or he would have to apply, I would have to apply for him for the residency, which is like a long procedure that I could not afford because I have a mom that I could not leave at home for a long time. Today, everyone knows where Ukraine is. It's surrounded by a lot of countries. And with the diplomatic relationship at that time, we could either go to the place where I could go without a visa. He would have to have visa, to the places where he can go without visa. I would have to get a visa. And the visa was not like now, like you can send it by mail. No, you had to go to the consulate and stay in line and stuff, which is, again, like I could not afford it to leave my mom for so long, like for half a day, for the whole day. So it's strange to think of it, but it actually happened that the easiest way to manage situation was for me to travel from Ukraine to California and back every 3 months. So he would get that entry step. And when people say like, oh, it's like you were traveling with the baby, it's so hard. It's just like traveling with baby is easy. Believe me, when the smaller they are, the more manageable they are. All of that was not the hardest part. The hardest part was what was happening inside of me as Euron asked me like what I was feeling. I was feeling that I was turning into a monster because of all the thoughts and the feelings that I had about my mom. That was extremely scary because there were days when I sincerely wished for her to die because I still believe it's like it's inhumane for any person to endure such suffering. But at the same time, because we are societally, we have this belief it's a bad thing to wish someone to die. And those two things, they were not sitting well together inside me because I was thinking like, what's wrong with me if I am the person who is wishing my mom to die, and my mom is for whole my life, she was my best person in the world. What kind of monster I am? What kind of a monster I am because I'm so resentful and I'm so angry with her and I'm so frustrated and irritated. And I was thinking at that time that she was the cause of all my problems. And she was the cause that my life was falling apart because of her and because of the situation we end up being in, because she didn't understand. I wanted her to come back to that previous version of my mom, whom I have known all my life. And like, mom, don't you see that I have a little baby and he's not an easy sleeper? He was like a baby, like it took forever to take him down to sleep. And then when he's finally asleep, she's banging on the wall or calling me on my phone because she needs something. And I'm dropping everything. I'm running to her and she forgot what she wanted. Or maybe she didn't want something. I was just like, Mom, don't you understand? Because at that time, I was not understanding that she lost that ability to understand. She lost the ability to sympathize with me. It was not my mom, not like in a metaphorical way. It was not my mom because of the changes that has already been happening in her brain that totally changed her personality. And that was the hardest thing that I have experienced. And that is the hardest thing that any person who is taking care of their aging parents or aging family members with dementia are going through.
Was Ukraine being invaded by Russia at this time?
No, it was before.
All right. And only curious, were you born in the United States or Ukraine?
No, I was born in the Soviet Union, and the part that I was born in is now Kazakhstan, but it happened purely because my father was an Air Force pilot and he happened to be stationed in that place. But my parents, all my ancestors on both sides are all from Ukraine.
Did you ever learn what it was that caused your mom to go through her transformation?
Transformation in terms of her brain transformation?
Her personality
Yeah.
and why she was thinking differently of you?
Yes, yes. And it's actually started a new journey, my overcoming journey, because first of all, I was looking for help and I couldn't even formulate what kind of help I needed. Like I could find the help someone who would physically help me with her, like who would help to let her like wash her and clean her, who would help with the medical treatments and stuff. But I didn't understand, I wasn't fully understanding what was happening with me, what kind of help I needed. And I started searching what it was. Honestly, I don't remember how exactly that moment happened that the word dementia came into my universe. And I started searching what dementia is. And I'm just like, oh, but this is what was happening with my mom. Even though like she was not like officially diagnosed with dementia the same way as she was officially diagnosed with her cancer, I started searching like and looking, learning about different types of dementia, what's happening in the human brain, like what dementia is, why it's happening, what's changing. And because I did have some background in psychology, it's not hard to understand that the changes in the brain affect the behavior of a person. But when I realized that dementia is pretty much is the death of the brain cells and the loss of the connection between the neuron connections, and it's irreversible, then that kind of like made me understand that it's that brain cell death happened because of that aggressive treatment that she had for her cancer. Because when my mom died, she was like 59 years old. She was not like an old lady for that we kind of like use that this is normal to have dementia at that age. So yeah, this is how I figured out what it was.
So there was a period of your life that where your mom was no longer the mom you remembered, and you were raising your son. How did you process that? How did you cope with that? And you did describe yourself as you were being a different person. What was it, if you can recall that, if this is the correct question, what was your turnaround point of you becoming more normal? I'm not sure that's even the right expression.
Mm-hmm. Well, for a very long time, I was kind of like feeling like I was like tight inside. Like if you hold something tight and don't let it go. So this is how I was treating myself. I didn't allow myself to feel anything that I could feel. I was functioning like literally like functioning. This is things that I need to do. These are the things that I need to do for my baby. This is the thing that I need to do for my mom. Honestly, my baby is something that is the person who pretty much saved my sanity, because I was reminding myself that this little child, he should have as normal childhood as it is possible to make it normal for him at that stage of his development. Like loving him and taking care of him was what helped me to take care of myself. And at some point, it was feeling like I had two babies at the same time, but they were moving in opposite directions. My baby was becoming more independent. He learned to walk. Then he was like running and crawling and climbing, like all the fun things that babies do. He was transitioning from purely breast milk to exploring different foods and eating more of a deep like variety of stuff and becoming more independent in what he eats and that he was eating myself, getting out of the diapers and being independent in his personal hygienic needs, versus my mom was going like in a completely opposite direction. She could move less and less. She lost the ability to walk. She was bedridden. I can't guess why it was, but she was kind of limiting the variety of food that she would eat. From one side, it's something that was easier to eat in terms of like the texture. The other thing that it's something that's like comfortable for her related to what she grew up with, versus like having a variety of good and interesting stuff. And then eventually I would have to mash everything and spoon feed her the same thing that we would do the baby. And because she was in bed, she was in diapers. It's just like completely opposite direction, which was fascinating at that moment. The turning moment, I remember exactly how it happened. It was in March. I scheduled an appointment with my dentist. And I made an arrangement with my friend who would come and sit with both my baby and my mom for that time when I would run to the doctor. There was something else happening, which I don't remember. There was also my own passport was expiring, and I realized that to renew this, I have to do something that I didn't have the capacity to do. And I felt trapped. I have felt trapped, and the only thing, it's like trapped, like you don't have control of anything on your life. Like you serve these people, you're making sure that everyone is alive and taken care of, but I was drowning. And at that time, I had a very long hair. I cut it short, so short that for a few months I didn't have to comb it because there was nothing to comb. Because that was my statement to myself, there is at least something in my life that I can take care of, that I'm in control of. That was probably my rock bottom moment to realize that it could not be like this. It could not continue like this. I need to change something. My change was to hire the help that would be like staying with me like 12 hours, so I could have like time off and be with my baby. I could have time off and just like go out for a walk and meet with friend for a coffee, and not worrying that I have to run back to take care of my mom because she would need like a next thing. And that like taking care, having someone who would help me in that big care process was a huge thing. And the next one was when it was in the summer, and my friend and her family was going to Carpathian Mountains like for the summer vacation. It's like a nice, beautiful area. It's out of the city, out of the heat, out of all the noises and stuff. And she said, like, you have to go with us. You have to go and be disconnected from everything because you need to recharge. Because if you don't take care of yourself right now, then you would not be able to survive for a long time, and your baby needs you.
Is it a part of the Soviet or Ukraine culture where you just don't talk about things that are bothering you? You just stay silent with it? Anything like that?
No, I wouldn't say so. We even have a joke like why to pay the therapist if you have a friend, because you can always like sit with a friend and share things. And I did have friends I have an amazing friends there who are still there, who also were my saving grace because they would show up whenever they were in that area of the city and come for the cup of coffee, cup of tea, something, and have a conversation. Many of them on the way, like, what should I bring? And they would bring me like groceries or some like stuff that is logistically harder to do with a little child, go to the stores and doing things. So they would take care of that too. Like they would bring me stuff. And we had these long conversations where pretty much I could unload everything. So no, it's not like a part that we could not say, we could not talk about these things. But the part that does exist is the belief that it's the child's responsibility, sole responsibility of taking care of the aging parents. So it was expected that I would be doing this. And it's so ingrained in the society that at that time there was not really like specialized facilities for the people like my mom in the condition like my mom's. So even if I wanted, even if I was understanding that I could not provide her the care that she needed, that she would need to have a specialized facility, there was no such specialized facility. And it's just like, that's the part of life, your parents or your grandparents in that stage, and you are dealing with that. And at that point, when I realized like I need to hire someone who helps me with that, some of my relatives, like especially like the older generation relatives, they were furious about that because for them it was hard to understand how I can hire someone to provide such a personal care of my mom like changing her diapers. It's not like diapers is such a holy thing that only I can change. It's just that the whole thing that you outsource this duty, because especially in the older generation, they believe like this is a part of loving your parent. Like you are sacrificing your life, especially when you're a woman, which is not only Ukrainian thing, it's like it's all over the world. Like if you're a woman, you are sacrificing yourself to give everything of yourself to the people in your family to take care of everyone. If you are not fitting into this mold, if you're doing things differently, it's not being accepted. So on the top of all the feelings of my relationship with my mom, I always constantly had this criticism and judgment that I do things wrong, that it's immoral what I was doing when I was hiring someone. Like I was paying money to someone to change the diapers of my mom. That was like unthinkable. That was another thing that had a lot of struggles, because I was understanding like they are not right. They don't know what I'm dealing with. But at the same time, still like when there's like things that are being repeated to you all the time, eventually you start questioning yourself, like maybe they right and not I'm right. And this is the interesting part that happens in many families with the same situation, that there's always people who tells you like what is the right way of doing things, but they never do those things themselves.
Are you an only child?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I was going to ask that as well. So that's one of the reasons you felt obligated to take care of your mom. Others in Ukraine could not, or it's just not culturally accepted for anyone else in Ukraine to do that.
I did this because I had such a close relationship with my mom that for me it was like the right thing to do. I could not leave here. Even when I was getting married and my husband was an American, and I told him like you have to realize that you're marrying both of us, because at the time when my mom would be getting old and she would need help, I will be helping her. I will be taking care of her, because she was like, I mean, I don't know how to explain. Like, she was like the main person in my life. Like, I loved her tremendously. We had the most amazing, close relationship parent and the child could have. So that was my reason why I was doing that. And I kept doing this because no matter how she changed, I still was recognizing her as my mom. And I believe that she deserved to have the remains of her day to live in dignity. And that's why I was doing everything to make sure that she was as comfortable as possible and do whatever I can for her. But in terms of, is it a common thing in Ukraine? I wouldn't say so. It's like it's not acceptable. It's just like the infrastructure was not there. Maybe if it were, it's like something has to be shifted, that and hopefully we would, at least I was thinking before the war, that we would shift to the point that we have so many elders that needs care, and so many professionals who are like younger generation, their children who are exposed to how things are done in the world outside of Ukraine, and there is like systems that are built for that, and bringing that system in. I don't know how it's going to be happening right now, because with the war, first of all, it's like the mortality of people, like this whole dynamic is changed. And at the same time, I understand that that would probably not be a priority for a while, because we have so many people affected and wounded in the war.
You are married to an American. Did you feel a close relationship with other Americans, or did you feel somewhat isolated during this time?
No, actually not. I came to the United States as a student, and I built, I don't know, I met the most amazing people here. Many of them are still my friends, who were very supportive and who were, I don't know, like even like brainstorming, like what can we do for you, like how we can support you. And it's isolating in a way not related to the cultural, geographic, political, administrative location at all. It's just like isolating when you have to deal with this situation, when you are facing that and you just like feel you are alone in the world. But I cannot attribute that anywhere to being like an American. When I came to this country, I had an intention to integrate, like to meet as many people as possible, to learn about their ways of living and their values and their stories, because it's more fun to learn about people and know people and get connected with them. And yeah, I get a lot of support.
Well, Iryna, on behalf of our listeners, I want to thank you for sharing a very difficult time of your life. And I hope our listeners can gain from what you experienced. That was a difficult time of your life, but you came through it well. And thank you for being willing to share with us. We thank you for being a part of us now.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share my story with your listeners. And I do hope that someone who listens that, and if they're in the same situation, they would not feel alone.
And that's exactly what we're about, Iryna, that we are not
it's a
alone.
hard
We're in this
time.
together.
It's a hard time, and never hesitate to ask for help.
Thank you. That's a great advice.
Thank you.
We appreciate having the opportunity to share our and our guests' life experiences with you.
The Cooper culture advances organizations to achieve and sustain high retention rates, connected communication, and trust through personality insights and principled leadership. You can contact us at our website, thecooperculture.com, and you can contact us directly at ron@thecooperculture.com or Marty, Marty, at thecooperculture.com. We work with you to help assess aspects of your culture to advance the environment and people to their best performance. We do that through our staff of certified personal performance coaches, leadership trainers, keynote speakers, and DISC personality behavior experts. You can book a speaking engagement directly through our website by contacting us at ron@thecooperculture.com. We look forward to sharing our life experiences with you, some of which are profound, some of which are pretty funny. Some of those life experiences are ones we'll never do that again because we've been through stuff. We truly look forward to working with you, speaking with you, helping advance you in any way that we can.